The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years. Their crystalline ships moved through hyperspace like silver daggers cutting through reality itself. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominance. His forearms crossed behind his back as he gazed at the star charts floating before him. The holographic display showed their latest conquest, a small solar system on the outer rim that had dared to resist their expansion. "Another primitive civilization crushed," Commander Veloth reported, his voice carrying the satisfaction of a job well done. Their technology was barely worth cataloging. Projectile weapons and chemical propulsion. Pathetic. Kethvar nodded, his compound eyes reflecting the blue light of the displays. The Zephyrians had encountered countless species during their rise to power. Some had put up decent fights. The crystalline Valdorians lasted nearly a century before falling. The plant-based Thornak Collective had managed to destroy 12 Zephyrian fleets before finally surrendering. But in the end, they all fell to the superior technology and military might of the Empire. "Sir," called Navigation Officer Trixan from her station, "we're receiving an automated distress signal from the Kepler 442 system. It appears to be coming from one of our archaeological survey teams." The Admiral's mood shifted. Archaeological teams were sent only to the most promising sites, places where ancient civilizations might have left behind useful technology or knowledge. "Put it through." The communication crackled with static before a panicked voice broke through. "This is Dr. Yentar of Survey Team 7. We need immediate evacuation from the third planet. We've found something that shouldn't exist. The ruins, they're massive, and the technology, it predates our entire civilization by millions of years." Kethvar felt his blood temperature drop several degrees. Predating Zephyrian civilization was theoretically impossible. They were the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel, the first to map the galaxy, the first to unite star systems under a single banner. Their historical records went back 15 million years, documenting their evolution from simple hunters to galactic overlords. "Estimated time to Kepler 442?" he asked. "4 standard days at maximum hyperspace velocity," Trixan replied. "Set course immediately, and send word to High Command. Tell them we may have discovered evidence of a previously unknown ancient civilization." The journey to Kepler 442 felt longer than usual. Kethvar found himself unable to focus on routine reports and tactical briefings. If another species had achieved space travel before the Zephyrians, it would shatter everything they believed about their place in the universe. Their entire identity was built on being the galaxy's first and greatest civilization. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace near the third planet, what they saw defied explanation. The world below was a brown and blue marble, its surface scarred by what looked like massive geometric patterns, visible even from orbit. But it wasn't the planet itself that caught their attention. It was the structures floating in space around it. Massive metal rings, each one larger than a Zephyrian city, orbited the planet in perfect mathematical precision. They were dark and lifeless now, but their construction was beyond anything the Empire had ever encountered. The metal itself seemed to absorb their scanner beams, making detailed analysis nearly impossible. "By the 7 moons," whispered Commander Veloth. "What species could have built something like this?" Dr. Yentar's shuttle docked with the Eternal Dominance 3 hours later. The elderly archaeologist was visibly shaken, his normally pristine research robes stained with what looked like rust and dirt. In his 4 arms, he carried a collection of artifacts that made the bridge crew step back in amazement. The items appeared to be tools or devices, but their design was completely alien. Not alien in the way other species' technology was alien. This was something else entirely. The materials were unknown, composed of elements that their scanners couldn't identify. The construction showed a level of precision that surpassed even Zephyrian manufacturing capabilities. "We found them in what appears to be a command center." Dr. Yentar explained, his voice still trembling. The entire complex is buried under millions of years of sediment, but the preservation is remarkable. The technology is so advanced that we can't even begin to understand how it functions. Admiral Kethvar picked up one of the devices, a smooth, rectangular object covered in symbols that seemed to shift and change when he wasn't looking directly at them. What do you know about the species that built this? That's the truly disturbing part, the archaeologist replied. Based on our preliminary analysis of the ruins and the artifacts, we believe this civilization called themselves humans. The word hung in the air like a curse. Humans were a myth, a legend told in the outer colonies about a species of great warriors who had once ruled the galaxy before vanishing without a trace. Most educated Zephyrians dismissed such stories as primitive superstition. Impossible, Commander Veloth said. Humans are folklore, stories told by conquered species to make themselves feel better about their defeat. But Dr. Yentar shook his head vigorously. The evidence is undeniable. We found what appear to be historical records, written in a language that matches descriptions from the old stories. More importantly, we found images, artistic representations of the beings who built this place. He activated a portable display device, and suddenly the bridge was filled with a three-dimensional projection. It showed a bipedal creature, tall and lean, with only 2 arms and 2 eyes. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and it wore clothing made from materials that seemed to flow like liquid metal. They called their homeworld Earth, Dr. Yentar continued. According to the records we've managed to translate, they achieved faster-than-light travel over 50 million years ago. They explored the galaxy, established colonies on thousands of worlds, and then they disappeared. Kethvar stared at the projection, his mind struggling to process the implications. If humans had truly achieved space travel 50 million years ago, then the Zephyrian Empire wasn't the first galactic civilization. It was merely the latest in a long line of species that had risen and fallen among the stars. What happened to them? He asked. We're not certain. The records we've found so far are incomplete. But there are references to something called the Great Journey and mentions of preparing for the next phase of existence. It's possible they evolved beyond the need for physical form, or perhaps they discovered something that led them to abandon this galaxy entirely. The Admiral felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. The idea that an entire civilization could simply evolve beyond physical existence was terrifying. It suggested possibilities and powers that the Zephyrian Empire couldn't even comprehend. Sir, Navigation Officer Trixan called out, her voice urgent. We're detecting massive energy readings from the planet's surface. Something is powering up down there. On the main display, they could see lights beginning to flicker across the geometric patterns, scarring the planet's surface. The ancient structures were awakening after eons of slumber, responding to their presence in ways that no dead civilization should be capable of. Get us out of here, Kethvar ordered. But even as he spoke, he knew it was too late. The space around their ship was beginning to distort, reality itself bending in impossible ways as the human ruins came online. The last thing he saw before the bridge lights failed was a message appearing on their communication screen, written in perfect Zephyrian script, despite being transmitted from technology that predated their entire species. Welcome. Children of the stars, we have been waiting. The Eternal Dominance shuddered as waves of unknown energy washed over its hull. Admiral Kethvar gripped his command chair as the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, causing loose objects to float and spin through the air. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the bridge as the main power systems struggled to maintain stability. Report, he barked, his 4 arms working frantically to activate backup systems. Hull integrity holding at 93%. Commander Veloth called out from his station. But our engines are completely offline. Whatever's happening down there, it's interfering with our hyperspace drive. The main display flickered back to life, showing the planet below. The geometric patterns on the surface were now blazing with brilliant white light, creating a web of energy that extended far into space. The massive orbital rings had begun to rotate slowly, their ancient mechanisms humming with power that registered on every sensor array. Dr. Yentar, who had been thrown to the floor during the initial surge, pulled himself up using one of the bridge supports. "Admiral, I don't think this is an attack. The energy patterns are too organized, too purposeful. It's more like the planet is trying to communicate." Before Kethvar could respond, the communications console erupted in a cascade of signals. Voices speaking in dozens of different languages filled the bridge, some recognizable as known galactic species, others completely alien. But underneath it all was a single, clear transmission in perfect Zephyrian. "Do not be afraid. Your arrival has triggered automated systems designed to activate when galactic civilization reaches sufficient technological development. You are the 47th species to achieve faster-than-light travel since our departure. We left this beacon to share what we learned during our time among the stars." The Admiral exchanged glances with his crew. 47th species? The Zephyrian Empire had encountered hundreds of space-faring civilizations during their expansion, but most were primitive compared to their own technology. The idea that 46 other species had achieved true interstellar travel was staggering. "Who are you?" Kethvar spoke aloud, hoping the transmission system was capable of two-way communication. "We were the species you call humans, though we abandoned that name long ago when we transcended our physical limitations. We ruled this galaxy for over 30 million years, not through conquest and domination, but through exploration and understanding. When we realized our time was ending, we chose to preserve our knowledge for those who would come after us." The bridge fell silent, except for the steady hum of machinery. The concept of ruling through exploration rather than military might was foreign to Zephyrian thinking. Their entire culture was built on the principle that strength determined hierarchy, that the powerful had the right to command the weak. "Why did you leave?" Dr. Yentar asked, his scientific curiosity overriding his fear. "Because we discovered something that changed our understanding of existence itself. Reality is far larger and more complex than any single galaxy. We found evidence of other universes, other dimensions where consciousness can exist in forms you cannot imagine. Our species chose to evolve beyond physical matter to explore these infinite realms." On the display, new images began to appear, star maps showing the galaxy as it had been 50 million years ago. Thousands of worlds were marked with symbols indicating human colonies, research stations, and cities. The scope of their civilization dwarfed anything the Zephyrian Empire had achieved. "But we did not leave you defenseless," the voice continued. "Hidden throughout the galaxy are repositories of knowledge, technology, and warnings about the dangers that threaten all physical life. You have found one of our beacon worlds. There are others, waiting for civilizations mature enough to understand their significance." Commander Veloth leaned forward in his chair. "What kind of dangers?" The response sent chills through every crew member present. "Forces from outside your galaxy that consume civilizations like yours for sustenance. We call them the Devourers. They arrived in our galaxy approximately 10 million years after we departed. 26 of the species that achieved faster-than-light travel after us were completely destroyed before they could defend themselves." Admiral Kethvar felt his confidence in Zephyrian superiority crumbling. They had always assumed they were the apex predators of the galaxy, the ultimate evolutionary success. The idea that something existed that could threaten even their mighty empire was almost incomprehensible. "How do we fight them?" he asked. "You cannot fight them with conventional weapons or military tactics. The Devourers exist partially outside normal space-time. They can manipulate matter at the quantum level and feed on the life energy of entire star systems. But we developed defenses during our final years in physical form, technologies that can protect entire sectors of space from their influence. New data began flowing into their computer systems, overwhelming their storage capacity with technical specifications and scientific theories that were centuries ahead of current Zephyrian understanding. Their most advanced scientists would need years just to begin comprehending the basic principles involved. The knowledge we are providing will seem impossible by your current scientific standards, the transmission acknowledged. But your species has the potential to understand and implement these technologies. We have observed your development for millennia. Your natural aggression and territorial instincts, while primitive, can be channeled into effective defense strategies. Dr. Yentar was frantically trying to catalog the incoming data on his portable devices. Admiral, this is extraordinary. They're providing detailed plans for weapons and defense systems that operate on principles we've never even theorized. Some of these designs could revolutionize our entire understanding of physics. But Kethavar was focused on more immediate concerns. How much time do we have before these devourers arrive? Based on our calculations and observations of their movement patterns, they will reach the outer edges of your galaxy within 200 of your standard years. However, their scouts may arrive much sooner. You must use this time to unite the various species of your galaxy and prepare coordinated defenses. The idea of cooperating with other species was almost as alien to Zephyrian thinking as the concept of interdimensional threats. Their entire military doctrine was based on conquest and subjugation. The notion of treating other civilizations as equals went against everything they had been taught. "Why should we trust you?" Commander Veloth asked suspiciously. "How do we know this isn't some elaborate deception designed to weaken our empire?" The response came with what sounded almost like amusement. "Because, young Zephyrian, your empire is already weak. You have built your civilization on the suppression of others rather than the cultivation of their strengths. When the devourers arrive, they will sweep through your scattered territories like fire through dry grass. Your only hope of survival lies in abandoning your current path and embracing cooperation." Admiral Kethvar wanted to argue, to defend the honor and strength of the Zephyrian Empire, but deep down, he knew the voice spoke truth. Their military might was impressive against primitive species, but they had never faced a threat that existed beyond the normal boundaries of space and time. "What do you want us to do?" he asked finally. "Return to your homeworld. Share what you have learned with your leaders. Begin the process of transforming your empire from a force of conquest into a coalition of cooperation. Reach out to the species you have dominated and offer them partnership rather than servitude. And most importantly, begin preparing your defenses using the technologies we have provided." The energy readings from the planet began to diminish as the ancient systems powered down. The orbital rings slowed their rotation, and the geometric patterns on the surface faded back to darkness. But the data remained, stored in their computer systems like a gift from gods. "The beacon will remain active for 72 of your hours," the transmission concluded. "Send additional ships to gather more information if you wish. But remember, time is precious, and the devourers do not show mercy to those who are unprepared." As silence returned to the bridge, Admiral Kethvar stared at the planet below. Everything he had believed about Zephyrian superiority, about their destiny as galactic rulers, had been shattered in a single afternoon. They were not the first, not the strongest, and certainly not the most advanced civilization the galaxy had ever seen. But perhaps, with the knowledge the humans had left behind, they could become the most important. 6 months had passed since Admiral Kethvar returned to the Zephyrian homeworld with news that shattered the foundations of their empire. The great crystal spires of the capital city now hummed with activity as scientists, military leaders, and politicians struggled to process the implications of the human legacy. High Counselor Zethmar stood before the assembled Council of Dominion, her normally composed demeanor showing signs of strain. The holographic displays around the chamber showed tactical assessments, population distributions, and resource allocations that painted a grim picture of their preparedness. The translation teams have made significant progress with the human archives, she announced to the gathered leaders. What we've learned is both enlightening and terrifying. The humans weren't just advanced, they were compassionate rulers who treated other species as partners rather than subjects. A murmur of discontent rippled through the chamber. Many of the older council members still refused to believe that cooperation could be more effective than domination. Admiral Kethvar, now serving as special advisor on galactic defense, stepped forward to address their concerns. "The evidence is undeniable," he said, activating a new set of displays. "We've identified 17 beacon worlds scattered throughout our territory. Each one contains detailed records of human interactions with other species. They didn't conquer civilizations. They elevated them. They shared technology freely, helped primitive species develop faster than light travel, and created a network of mutual defense that protected the entire galaxy." Commander Veloth, who had been promoted to Director of Xenological Affairs, added his own findings. "We've also discovered why the human approach was so effective. When the Devourers attacked isolated civilizations, they were easily overwhelmed. But when species worked together, sharing resources and coordinating their defenses, they could actually drive back the invasion." The chamber erupted in arguments as council members debated the feasibility of such radical changes to their society. Some called for immediate implementation of human technologies, while others insisted on maintaining traditional Zephyrian superiority. The debate might have continued for hours, if not for an urgent interruption from the communications center. "High Counselor!" The technician's voice crackled through the chamber speakers. "We're receiving distress calls from the Outer Rim colonies. Multiple systems are reporting strange energy signatures and disappearing planets." The council fell silent as the implications sank in. The Devourers had arrived 2 centuries ahead of schedule. Dr. Yentar, who had been working tirelessly to understand human technology, rushed to the central display console. "Show me the sensor data from the affected systems," he commanded. What appeared on the screens defied rational explanation. Entire worlds were simply vanishing from space, leaving behind empty orbital paths and confused gravitational fields. The energy signatures accompanying these disappearances matched theoretical models the humans had provided for Devourer activity. "How is this possible?" "Hi.